Hey y'all, welcome back to Storytime with Jazzy. Today we're talking about my boy Silas. Whew, this is a sad one. Unfortunately, this story doesn't have your usual happy ending. Let's get into it. Silas ran the most successful tech company in his state. What made him different was that he wasn't your typical tech genius. He was young and only had a high school diploma. No fancy colleges, no Ivy League background, nothing. But somehow, the technology his company produced was light years ahead of companies that had been around for generations. Now, let's back up a second. Silas's parents, Maya and Zach, had struggled for years to have children. Then, during Maya's pregnancy, they received a prophecy from God. They were told their son would become extremely successful and would help countless people through medical technology. But there were conditions. Maya was instructed that during her pregnancy, she had to live a pure life. No smoking, no alcohol, nothing unclean. And most importantly, Silas's hair could never be cut. But somehow, his hair was connected to the gift God placed on his life, his intellect, his wisdom, his ideas. Growing up, Silas was always the smartest kid in class. Teachers constantly asked his parents if they wanted to skip him ahead a few grades, but they declined. By high school, Silas was dominating robotics competitions. Man, his team was crushing everybody. Once Silas showed up with one of his ideas, the other schools already knew it was over. By the time he graduated, God had given him 10 full notebooks of medical technology ideas. We're talking early cancer screenings, advanced birth defect scanners, technology that would detect diseases years earlier with zero harm to patients. And those major companies, they were hot. So furious that several of them secretly teamed up together and created something called Operation Silas. Yeah, when your competitors got a band together just to stop you, you know it's serious. See, nobody could figure out how Silas's mind worked, but one thing everybody did know, Silas loved women. And unfortunately, he always chased the wrong kind. His parents tried introducing him to women from church, but Silas wasn't interested. And then one day he came home and told his parents he had met someone during one of his business trips. Her name was Tanya. His parents was stressed immediately because they knew that she probably more than likely wasn't good for him, but also they knew nothing about her. But Silas was determined to marry her. Little did everybody know, this was all part of a warning God was trying to give him. Wedding preparation started. Everything seemed perfect. And honestly, Silas thought he finally found someone real. However, little did Silas know, some of his competitors had managed to sneak directly into the wedding party through Tanya's family. Y'all, that's messed up. That's real messed up. A week before the ceremony, the families gathered for a celebration dinner. Everyone was laughing, eating, talking. Then one of the groomsmen stood up and tapped his glass. "Can I have everybody's attention?" He smiled at Silas. "Man, we all know you're about to secure that huge cancer center contract. We gotta know, how did you create that early detection scanner?" Silas laughed. "Y'all really want to know that bad?" Then he smirked. "I'll tell you what, if any of y'all can figure out, I'll give y'all $10,000. Everybody started murmuring. After the dinner, the groomsmen got together trying to figure it out, but nobody had a clue. Finally, one of them said, "Let's ask Tanya." So they went to her. "You have to know." Tanya said she didn't, but eventually they convinced her to find out. So Tanya went to Silas and begged him over and over and over for an answer. At first, he refused. He told her, "My parents don't even know. Why would I tell anybody else?" But after days of pressure and nagging, Silas finally gave in. And the second he told her, okay, the second she ran and told her brothers the answer, he had successfully combined MRI and ultrasound technology together. So the night before the wedding at the rehearsal dinner, one of the groomsmen stood up smiling. Okay, Silas, we know the answer. You combined MRI and ultrasound technology. Immediately, Silas's face dropped. He slowly turned and looked at Tanya, and right then he knew. She told him. Silas looked back at the groomsmen and said, y'all wouldn't have known that if you hadn't gone through Tanya. Then the whole room was very awkward. It was a really awkward silence, but baby, you know they was enjoying all the drama, because you know how people be. So Silas told them, fine, I'll bring y'all the money tomorrow before the wedding. Now, I'm going to stop right here before I continue my story, because my thing is, Silas didn't realize that this was like a major red flag. Like, he told his soon-to-be wife something confidential, and she ran back and told. So, I mean, he ain't had no second thoughts. Like, hey, maybe I shouldn't move forward with her, because if I can't trust her with this, what makes you think I can trust her with anything else? I mean, that kind of makes sense. But in our case, Silas ignored those red flags. Silas was like Stevie Wonder. Like, he ain't see that big old red flag that God was waving, trying to tell him about this girl. But, alright. Look, let me get back to the story, because I'm just over it with this man. So, the next morning, Silas went to the bank, got the money, and arrived at the chapel. He handed the groomsmen their money, and of course, they all had these little smug looks on their faces. Before leaving, one of them said, oh yeah, Tanya left you a note. Silas picked it up, and instantly his stomach dropped. The note said, hey Silas, I loved you with all of my heart, but I can't marry you. I'm in love with Thomas, and I'm going to marry him instead. Y'all, this is wild. Like, imagine doing all this for somebody just for them to leave you on your wedding day for another man. And not just any man, a family friend. That's evil. And it was even more personal because Silas was introduced to Thomas at the beginning of Tanya's and Silas's relationship, and he was introduced as a brother figure. Like, he had been around the family, they all had grew up together, and so it was like a brother-sister relationship. And so it was just kind of like the betrayal, and it was just crazy, So Silas sat down in silence, and everything started making sense. The setup, the manipulation, the betrayal. Then his phone buzzed. Breaking news. One of his competitors had secured the cancer center contract using a technology almost identical to his. That's when it fully hit him. She never loved him. She used him. So what did Silas do? Oh, baby, he was petty. He was being a petty Betty. That man went straight to TMZ and exposed everything. Headlines everywhere. How billion-dollar companies manipulated tech genius. Wedding betrayal ends in corporate scandal. And you know what happened next? That company lost the contract. Then they went bankrupt. See what happened? That's what happens when you play with people God anointed. Now, y'all already know this story isn't over, but trust me, Silas still hasn't learned his lesson yet. So we're going to say that for part 2. Thank y'all for listening to Storytime with Jasmine. And remember, Satan can't stop God's purpose, but he will try to distract, delay, and corrupt it through the people you allow close to you. Be careful who has access to your heart, your mind, and your secrets. Until next time. Love y'all.